If you've got your Bible with you this morning, would you turn with me to Proverbs chapter 3? Proverbs chapter 3 this morning. And we've already had the opportunity to recognize and pray over and encourage our amazing 2025 Abilene graduates. And so we noticed out there earlier, some have already walked the stage and turned the tassel. Others will in just a few days. Some are headed off to college, others to full-time jobs. Some are joining the military, others are trying to figure out what comes next. And you know, that's okay because not every path looks the same. But more than recognition, this morning is a time for us to reflect as a church. And we need to ask the question, what does it mean to live a life that matters? Not just for a moment, but for a lifetime. Not just right now, tomorrow maybe. What does it mean to live a life that matters for a lifetime? I asked the early services, and 8:30 was a little slow this morning. They were a little tired. I must have stayed out too late watching fireworks. And but I asked the early service, so I'll ask you in the 11 o'clock service, how many of you guys remember the TV series Unsolved Mysteries? Can I see your hands? Raise your hand. Remember this? So all the old folks. Well, there's one famous unsolved mystery that never made it on that TV show. It happened in 1991 in the small country town of Milan, Tennessee. About this time of year, I had already graduated. I was there in the gymnasium at Milan High School. And they passed out the diplomas. And when they passed out the diplomas, there was a mystery. Now, some of y'all are sitting there thinking they didn't put the diploma in. No, the diploma was in there. But the diploma said something that we were not expecting. I mean, you just got to remember my background. You got to remember my background. See, here at Abilene, you know me as Dr. Brad Whitt or Pastor Brad, and you've seen all the. So you think that I've always liked school. I hated school. I really hated high school. Did you know that you can actually make a 36 in Spanish in 6 weeks? Did you know that? Ask me how I know that. Because Senorita Blow put it on the back of the report card and said, Brad's actual grade was 36, but if I didn't give him a 65, he'd never get out of my class. Thank you. But the mystery was this. When they handed me that diploma, and you know, you don't open it when you're going across the stage. You wait till you get back in your chair and you open up to see the diploma, right? And when I opened it up, it said something that I was not expecting. It said, honors diploma. How does a guy who makes a 36 in Spanish get an honors diploma? Somebody said, well, maybe they just made a mistake. Look right here. I just view it as the providence of God. But I remember standing there in the foyer, the vestibule of their Milan High School. And my mom pulled me over to the side and she said, you know, we weren't really sure this day would ever come. That just kind of blesses your heart for your mama to say that, right? And she says, you know, you never made the best grades, which was true. I mean, I spent a lot of time grounded for C's and those sorts of things. She said, you never made the best grade, but let me ask you a question, Brad. If you had it to do all over again, would you do anything different? I looked back at my mom and said, no, ma'am, I had fun. How many of y'all had fun? Can I see your hands? But I remember there standing in the vestibule at Milan High School after my own graduation, wondering what life would look like next. I didn't know. I didn't have all the answers then. I still don't today. But I have learned this. You don't have to know the whole path to walk with God. You just have to take the next step. Graduation is more than a ceremony. It's a crossroads. It's a moment when the page is turned and the questions come fast and loud. What should I do next? Where should I go? How do I know that I'm headed in the right direction? And while this morning is about honoring our graduates, really this message that I'm going to share with you today is for every single one of us in this room this morning. Because whether you're finishing high school or facing retirement, life is filled with those times when we ask, hey, where do I go from here? And here's the good news. God hasn't left us to figure that out on our own. He has given us His wisdom, not just for graduating, but for living. And Proverbs 3, 5 through 6 gives us a pathway to follow, not to worldly success, but to a life that is truly built to last. Now, that kind of life doesn't come all at once. It's not built in great big leaps. It's built the way that any path is walked, one step at a time, step by step, decision by decision, trusting God, not for the entire journey all at once, but for just that next faithful move. Elizabeth Elliot made a great statement. She said, when you don't know what to do next, just do the next thing. Warren Wiersbe said something very similar. He said, what do you do when you don't know what to do? You do what you know to do. And that's how lives are formed, right? That's how futures unfold. And that's exactly what Solomon is talking about here in Proverbs chapter 3, picking up in verse 5. If you've made your way there, say, uh-huh. So Solomon says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. And those are not words for short-term motivation. Those are words about long-term direction. And so here's the question for us this morning. How do you move forward, graduates? How do you move forward into the future when you don't really know what the future holds? And here's the answer. You walk with God one step at a time. If you're taking notes here this morning, and I would encourage our students and everybody to take some notes either in your margin of your Bible or there on your phone. Here's the very first thing that Solomon says. Number one, if you're going to take it step by step, number one, commit your confidence. Look there what he says at the first part of verse 5. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. See, the goal is not to have your whole life mapped out. It's to trust the one who already knows the way. The Hebrew word there for trust is the word that means to lie flat down, face down, helpless on the ground. It's not cautious, it is complete. It's not testing the water with your toe. It is jumping in with both feet. That's the kind of trust that God is calling for here. And he says there, trust in the Lord with all your heart. In the Hebrew way of thinking, your heart isn't just your emotions, it's the seat of your thoughts, your desires. So to trust God with your heart means that surrender your decisions, your reasoning, and your desires to Him. So trust is the very first step this morning, guys. Trust is the very first step. And if you're going to walk with God, you've got to do it one step at a time. And that very first step must be confidence in the character of God. Graduates, look right here. There are going to be times when your friends let you down. There are going to be those times when the plan doesn't unfold the way that you thought it would. And that's when you've got to decide, who am I going to trust? Who am I going to listen to? Who am I going to follow? And if the answer to any one of those questions is anybody else other than the Lord, you are in for a rough road. John G. Patton was a famous missionary in the South Pacific. And he was translating a Bible for a tribe there. And he had come here to Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. And he couldn't find a word in their language that would translate trust or faith. Until one day there was a native that walked into his tent and just plopped down in a chair. And as he plopped down in the chair, he just uttered a phrase that literally meant, I'm resting all my weight. And when Patton heard that, he went, that's it. And he used that word to translate Proverbs 3, verse 5. Because biblical faith isn't cautious. It's resting your full weight on God. Look right here. Trust Him with your major, your job, your relationships. Trust Him when the path is smooth and when it's not smooth. Trust Him not just for salvation, but with your schedule, with your future, with your identity. But now, if you're going to trust God, you have to stop trusting something else. So he says there, trust in the Lord with all your heart. So if you're going to trust God, then you've got to stop trusting somebody else. And that is your very own perspective. So number two, not just commit your confidence, but number two, confront your limitations, because it goes on to say, and lean not on your own understanding. I got some great news. Are y'all still awake this morning? God's not looking for perfection. Aren't you glad for that? God's not looking for perfection. He's simply asking for surrender. Just take that next faithful step. So I shared with the other services that in Tennessee, especially far northwest Tennessee, we have 4 seasons, unlike here in Georgia where we only have one. Hot and hotter, right? And in Tennessee, we would have these cold spells in December and January where it would get down to 2 degrees, negative degrees. I mean, it'd get cold. And so what would happen is that the ponds and bodies of water would freeze up. Well, we're country boys. Now, we're not Yankees. We don't have ice skates, but we have boots. And so we would get out and we would skate, or I guess you would call it boot, on the ice. And there was a body of water right behind our house. Now, there were 2. There was one cattle pond on the right-hand side. You don't want to mess with a cattle pond. Can I say amen to that? But there was a little body of water right behind my house that would fill up and from time to time. And then when it would freeze, you would have this long sheet of ice. And we would get out there and we'd run across that ice and then slide. It was amazing. Except it doesn't stay cold in West Tennessee very long. And so if you're not careful, you would get out there on that ice and guess what would happen? Say it out loud. It'd break. You'd fall through. Look right here. Leaning on your own understanding is like walking across a frozen pond in the springtime. It might look safe. It might appear strong. But the wrong step and you are soaked and sinking. That's what it's like, leaning on your own understanding. And Solomon says, look, you don't want to do that. You don't want to lean on what you think you know. You want to lean on the one who knows it all. My pastor, Adrian Rogers, said that the will of God is not a road map. That's what we want most of the time. He said the will of God is not a road map, it's a relationship. If you know Him, He will guide you. Look right here. When that door closes, don't panic. When that scholarship doesn't come through, don't doubt God's goodness. When your dream plan takes a detour, remember this. You might just see part of a chapter. God knows the whole story. You don't need all the answers. You just need to know the one who holds them. And you might not, this right here is great. You might not know where you're going to be 5 years now. You might have no idea where you're going to be 5 years from now. But look right here. If you'll start walking with God today, when you get there, you'll be exactly where you're supposed to be. So what do you do in the meantime? You keep God in every corner of your life. That's number 3. You cultivate God consciousness. Verse 6, he says, in all your ways acknowledge Him. So the world says, build your platform. God says, follow me. One's going to last, one's not. I've got a question that I've asked my kids over the years, and usually when we're riding in the car, and I'll say, what do you want to do when you grow up? And normally I get this answer, I don't know. No, seriously, what do you want to do when you grow up? I don't know. I've asked that and Jack that, I don't know. But I asked John here a couple months ago, I said, John, what do you want to do when you grow up? Do you know what you want to do? He said, I sure do. Really? You know what you were supposed to do? He said, I sure do. I said, what do you want to do when you grow up? He said, I want to be a YouTuber. A what? I said, you want to be a what? He said, I want to be a YouTuber. I said, that's not a living. That's not a job. He said, oh, yes, it is. He's got it all figured out. He even has a name. He's 11. He has a name for his YouTube channel. And he can tell you when you have this many viewers, and you get money, they pay you. And so he's got it all worked out. Are y'all there? I mean, that's a long way to go from, oh no, I want to be a YouTuber. The world says, build your platform. God says, follow me. One's going to last, one's not. So he says there, in all your ways acknowledge him. The word acknowledge means that more than just admitting that he exists. It's not just, God, I know that you're up there. It means submitting your plans, your path, and your heart to him. It means asking not just, what do I want to do, but what honors God? Graduates, before you go somewhere, invite God into it. Before you accept that job offer, pray about it. Before you make that next big decision, ask, will this bring me closer to God or will it push me further away? James Merritt said something amazing. He said, God doesn't want a place in your life. What pastor says that? He said, God doesn't want a place in your life. He doesn't want prominence. He wants preeminence. He wants to be first. Corey ten Boom used to ask the question, is prayer your steering wheel or your spare tire? What she meant by that was, is God the one you run to first, or is he only there as a last resort? If you haven't done it already, pray over your class schedule. Bring Jesus into your career plans. Let him shape your dating life, your friendships, and your finances. Invite him into the ordinary and he'll make your life extraordinary, right? And when you do that, when you keep God at the center of it all, here's what happens next. He leads you. And that's number 4. Confidently follow his lead. Look at the end of verse 6. He says, and he shall direct your paths. And he shall. That's not a wish, that's a promise. He shall, he will direct. That's the confidence we have in walking when we're walking with him. It's not hiding his will. People talk about, I'm trying to discover God's will. I'm trying to find God's will. Like God hides his will. God's not hiding his will. He's walking in it with you. Direction is a result of relationship. God doesn't promise you that you're always going to know everything in advance. If you think that God's going to give you everything in advance, you are sadly mistaken. But he promises you that you will never stay in the dark if you are walking according to the light of his word. I asked the early service, and they must have been asleep. I asked out at Harlem, and they got this. So I'm going to see if you guys are either awake or aware. I was going to say, when I was raised in West Tennessee, we did a lot of hunting. We bird hunted. Deer hunted some. Dove hunted all the time. I had buddies that hunted raccoons. Anybody ever been coon hunting? Can I see your hands? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Raise your hands. So we hunt these little bandits. They did. I didn't. I didn't do it. They would say, Brad, you want to go coon hunt with us tonight? No. You say, why? Because I'm a bird hunter. When it gets dark, we go to the truck. It's illegal to shoot quail after dark. I've never done that. And they would want us to go coon hunt. I don't coon hunt. You know what? When you raccoon hunt, you're out in the woods, dark. God didn't want us in the woods at dark. If he did, it wouldn't be dark. And so they would want us to go. And so back in the day, we didn't have the lights like we have today. They got lights today that light up entire football fields. We didn't have that back in the day. You had a little bitty lamp that you put on top of your head, and you go through the woods listening to the dogs barking 3 counties over. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And so you would have this little bitty lamp on your head, and you're running around the woods, and it's just lighting up enough for that very next step. Look right here. In the Christian life, you don't have and you don't need a floodlight that that lights up the entire path. You just need enough light for that very next step. And that's how God leads. Step by step. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to be faithful. Don't chase clarity, chase Christ. When you follow Him, the path becomes clear. That's the life that's built to last. A life that is lived one obedient step at a time. So graduates, look right here. I'm about done. You don't have to know everything. Aren't you glad for that? You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to go viral on YouTube. You don't have to impress the world. You just have to walk with God. That's how you build a life that lasts. You trust God fully. You don't lean on yourself. You acknowledge Him in everything. And you let Him lead you one step at a time. David Livingston had a great statement. He said, I'm willing to go anywhere as long as it's forward. I remember the very first time I played golf. I don't play golf. I don't like golf. If I'm going to spend 4 hours on a Saturday morning and 5 hours doing something's going to die and I'm going to eat it. But everybody kept telling me as a pastor, you're supposed to play golf. So we live in Augusta, right? And I'm a pastor, and I go to these conferences, and I have my master stuff on, and they'll go, oh, you play golf. I hate golf. I live there, right? How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? Raise your hand, right? We get it, give it to us. So, the very first time I played golf, I played with one staff member and 2 deacons. I should have known. And the very first tee-off that I ever had playing golf was over a pond. Who does that to a preacher? Look right here. Staff member and 2 deacons. Mike Barbary. Josh, Mike Barbary. I got up there. How hard can it be? It's a white ball. Got to go that way. I see everybody. Tiger does it easy. It's amazing. I reared back. And I hit it straight into the pond. I'm not straight. Then I reared back and hit the next one. And it started skipping like that pole at the master. Pop, 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 in the water. Didn't make it across. Finally, on the 4th one, I got it over the pond by that much. My next hit went about 40 yards. I'm about to throw all of my clubs back in the pond. And Mike Barbary makes this statement. I've never forgotten it. This isn't just good for golf, it's good for life. Here's what he said. Forward progress. Forward progress. Pastor, it's okay as long as you make forward progress. Did you know that you can hit golf balls and they go backwards? Did you know that? Forward progress. And forward is where God will take you if you will just trust and follow Him. Class of 2025, look right here. Don't chase a path, follow a person. Don't build a platform. Build a life that is founded on Jesus. Because if you'll walk with Him just one step at a time, you will never be lost or alone. And let this be the prayer, not just of the graduates, but of every single believer here this morning. Lord, I will trust you with my own heart. I will not lean on my own understanding. In all my ways, I'm going to acknowledge you. And when I do, I believe that you will direct my path one step at a time. That's how a life's built. That's how a legacy's formed. That's how a generation is changed. One decision, one surrender, one step at a time. I'm going to ask you one last question. I asked this in the early service, and again, I guess they were just asleep this morning. I asked one of our young staff members, I said, have you ever heard these words? And so in a minute, I'm going to give you the words of a song that was very, very popular when I first started out in the ministry. And I'm just curious, how many of you all know the words of this song? You know what the song is. Now, again, I asked one of our young staff members, and you can tell I'm old. I came here when I was 39 years old. I'm not 39 anymore, but it made me feel really old. Because this is one of the songs this was cutting edge contemporary when I was first starting out. So here's what we're going to do. You got to react to me, or I'll keep you here till 2 o'clock. And we're about done. When I start saying the words of this song, as soon as you know the words, raise your hand. Okay? Are y'all there? All right. And step by step, you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. Like 6 of us. I don't know whether to feel old or just out of the loop. That's how God leads. And step by step, you'll lead me, and I will follow you all of my days. May that be your prayer, your mindset, your mission. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths.